Hi, this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, and we are here for another edition of the More Insights and Strategy podcast. And I have an exciting guest, Matt Collins, CMO and Chief Commercial Officer at Calix. And we are here to talk about ISPs and improving their Net Promoter Score. Matt, how are you?
Fantastic. Really excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm assuming you're in Canada and I'm here in Austin. Our weather is quite different, but the great part about being remote is that we can do things like this.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a virtual world and we can work together from anywhere.
And I know it's great. This is a two-part series, and this is part one, where we are going to talk about how ISPs can improve their Net Promoter Score. But before we jump into that, Matt, I know I gave you a little bit of an introduction. Can you talk a little bit about Calix and about yourself?
Sure. Calix is a technology company, cloud software and systems. We serve the telecommunications industry, ISPs or broadband service providers in particular. And our goal is to help them transform the way that they create value for their subscribers and their communities by using data to understand the needs of their customers and serve them more effectively. I joined Calix about 5 years ago, and my role was to come transform our go-to-market. So I'm the CMO. I run marketing, field enablement, and our third-party channel organization. And the goal there is to bring enablement and all the great marketing to all of those ISPs to help them understand how they can transform and how they can create value. I also run commercial operations, which is all of our supply chain, data analytics, field operations, business unit, process, and IT. And they sound slightly different, but increasingly they've become much more intertwined, particularly in the supply chain environment, because we have to have a very granular understanding of the demand in the marketplace for different products, and then how we actually can translate that into the right supply, which has become hypercritical in our industry over the last 2 years. So I wear those two hats that are becoming increasingly entwined.
Yeah, and it's very, very unique as well, but I do think it's definitely a trend. I was reading through your bio, and it says you won the 2021 CMO Technology Leadership Award from the CMO Club. I think that's awesome. When I used to have a quote unquote real job, I was in a CMO role, and it's incredible and super difficult to get an award like that. So congratulations.
Oh, thank you. And congrats to my team. We live what we preach. We're very technology enabled, very data centric, and it's great to get the recognition of all the great things that the team is doing, because ultimately it helps educate our customers about the possibility of what they can do. So that's the ultimate reward, but the recognition was certainly nice.
Yeah, and also you've had quite the run up too. I mean, what a transformation of Calix. And to everybody listening and watching out there, check out the company and look at their history. They're really on a rocket ship here. So let's start off with what's going on in the environment in the telecommunications industry. What has changed over the past couple years?
Well, I think the biggest thing driving the change in the environment is no secret, right? It's the pandemic, which has changed the whole demand profile for broadband service providers. It's not that people just want more, they actually want different and better. So they're looking to work from home, people are learning from home, performance has gotten more important. But the biggest thing that's changed is that people's needs have become much more nuanced as they really rely more and more on great broadband, almost as a utility, to live their lives. Are they gamers? Are they streamers? Do they work from home? Do they have children who they want to protect and make sure that in those experiences they're safe? And what's really changed for the service providers, they've had to shift their utility mentality and start to use data to understand the individual experiences and needs of their different subscribers, and then deliver services rapidly to meet them. Things like home network security, parental controls, internet cameras. These are a brave new world. And so they've had to move from, again, a utility mindset, which is I provide you uninterrupted service, which is important, but to a customer service and customer satisfaction mentality to create value that people really appreciate, because competition's ramped up. And if the service provider is not doing it, someone else will step in. It could be an internet giant like a Google or an Amazon. It could be a competitive ISP, or who knows, in the future, it could be Elon Musk.
Yeah, and from what I've seen, this massive growth and massive competition isn't necessarily translating to an improved NPS, and in fact, NPS for ISPs is pretty poor. But before we jump into that, for Matt, maybe you can talk about what NPS even is to the audience who may not be entirely familiar with it.
Well, in a little background. So as I mentioned, suddenly the ISP, the BSP has to start to think about, are my customers satisfied? Are they getting the services that they need? It's not just a utility that they pay for because they have to. And so our industry, we've been really trying to champion, and people are adopting this idea of customer satisfaction. And Net Promoter Score is a very popular and effective way to understand how many of your subscribers, in this case, are so happy with what you're doing for them that they would actually promote you. They would actually go to a friend and say, I love my tech provider. They're giving me great service. Can you believe this? And this is a whole brave new world, right? Again, used to be, hey, am I delivering 100 meg to the house or 500 gig? Now it's, they have needs. Am I meeting them? Are they happy? And what's really important is you have to sort of personalize the experience. As I'd mentioned, what are you looking for on top of just a Wi-Fi broadband connection? Are you looking for great managed service? Are you looking for different software packages? And so our industry, because of its legacy, historically has done really poorly. In fact, I've looked at surveys from the Wall Street Journal, HubSpot, you name it. And internet service providers and cable broadband providers are generally at the bottom, literally at the bottom, with negative scores, which means more of their customers, the majority of their customers are actually a detractor and would say actually bad things about them, right? And that's a terrible legacy. In fact, actually, in one of the surveys, the one industry right above it was your health insurance company, which, is typically not considered, the most customer friendly organization. Although I did have fun at our last conference, because in one of the surveys, the top rated industry was breweries. And so I suggested that they all open up microbreweries in their headquarters and invite their subscribers into, everyone had a good laugh at that. But more importantly, they have to become aware of it. And the way to improve your customer service is to use data. So our cloud platform that we've rolled out over the last 4 years and really improved, and it's very specific to marketing and customer support and operations, is designed to empower them with data to understand what's happening in your home in terms of your experience. Are you hitting interruptions? What's happening in the network that connects to your home? And what technologies are you using in the home that might suggest that you might want to use internet cameras, you might want to manage its service? And here's the good news. For our customers who have embraced this technology and this whole mindset, their net promoter scores have gone up dramatically. We have one customer, Allo, who, when they started using the Calix Cloud, their net promoter score went up 44 points in 6 months, which is incredible. I just met with one of our customers who is an electric co-op who's been in broadband for only 3 years. They have a net promoter score of 90. And if you do your research, that's almost unheard of.
It really is. It really is unheard of. I mean, especially when you look at the fact that, airlines have better scores than some of these ISPs. That I had to do a double take, and I even asked was talking with your team on where did you get this data again, and then looked it up, and sure enough, it's there. And Matt, you talked a few of the ways that that ISPs can improve their NPS, and I'm curious if you have any other examples out there.
I'll give you a few examples. So let's say that you're a grandparent and your grandkids are coming over and they're gaming and they keep hitting service limits and they keep having problems. And then your broadband service provider calls and says, "Hey, I noticed you've been hitting a lot of service limits. Would you be interested in a higher service level? We have a gaming package. And that's not theoretical. We have a customer, YK Communication, that ran a campaign targeting customers who had high use of gaming in their home and were also hitting a lot of service limits. And it turned out that more than 60% of the people who they got responses from and were targeting were grandparents. They had no idea.
Oh my gosh.
It's because the grandkids were coming over and visiting and gaming and hitting service limits. And those grandparents were thrilled. They're like, oh my God, you mean you could make it so that when my grandkids come over, they have a great experience? I can give you hundreds of examples like that where they use data to understand the experience. Again, some industries, they like to sell data. This is actually using data to deliver a better experience and drive happiness. Another example, you can actually see that, oh, by the way, there's a problem with the Wi-Fi because it turns out that there's a microwave that's on the same channel as certain devices. And with the cloud, you can actually automatically detect that, understand when people are active in the home, and at 2 a.m, change the channel automatically and remotely. So guess what? You know what that means? You don't have to sit at home for 4 hours for a truck roll, right? And the only people who don't like truck rolls more than service providers are their subscribers. So those are just a couple of practical examples where they can use data and intelligence and automation to drive an incredible increase in customer satisfaction. And it's all very logical, but that last example is very similar to what Allo did to achieve those, because suddenly people go, I haven't had an outage or a problem or a truck roll in the last 6 months. This is amazing.
So you had mentioned, so I think you talked about 3 attributes that some of these, I don't want to call them worst to first, but these companies did, and it seems, I wouldn't call it necessarily straightforward, but then again, letting people know they could have better service when they need better service seems something. But if it's not instrumented, I also understand the technology that if it's not instrumented, and if you're not actually trying to make those improvements, it's never going to happen on its own, other than people complaining, right?
Yeah, it's a shift in mindset, right? So you have to make the commitment to say, I'm going to be proactive and provide better service. Then you have to say, I'm going to adopt new technology. And obviously, we do many, many things to make it easier for our customers to adopt these technologies. But still, it's a big mindset. It's an investment. But a big part of it is just then you have to kind of build some new muscles in your organization. I mean, many of these customers of ours, they don't really have a marketing team, right? So, and they don't understand what marketing is. And so when you create this, great new service and these new technologies are being deployed, you have to actually then be able to reach out to a subscriber and say, I know that you traditionally would think that you would go to a Google or an Amazon or a Comcast for this, but we can provide you with an amazing managed, home internet camera experience for security. And what I think many of them are realizing is, because our customers are smaller and local, they have local knowledge and intimacy, but they also have trust. So those big companies that I mentioned, I think it's safe to say that many people are at best skeptical of their motives, right? But whereas your local service provider, where the board is made up of the woman who runs the Ford dealership and the guy who runs the bank and the leader of the local PTO, it's an incredibly different dynamic. And what they have in common is they have that trust, and they're leveraging it, and they're saying to the community, look, I'm going to go build an amazing fiber network. I'm going to invest in these technologies, and we're going to own it as a community, right? It's going to be ours. Many times it literally is owned by the community, which again is very different than something that's being owned by Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos and Amazon and all of that. So it's a really interesting dynamic how they are realizing that local trust and intimacy put together with a commitment to being customer first, using data, deploying technology. It creates a tremendous value proposition.
Something just clicked in my head, which is, Matt, you're an award-winning CMO. In addition to your commercial operations role, it seems like they could benefit from your experience. And I know this is a little bit off topic, but the idea of even consulting with them, consulting services to help them move along, I think would much be appreciated. And sometimes marketing gets a bad name, but if you connect with what customers want and what makes them happy with, oh, by the way, this is called marketing, I think people look at it in a very different way. So
it can be a pejorative for sure sometimes.
Exactly. Matt, you talked about some great customer stories, how they've increased NPS. Talked about some characteristics that make them a bit similar. Question for you though is, how has Calix changed to meet those needs and make that happen?
Well, the first thing I'd say is if you looked at the makeup of our team and their backgrounds and their skills, it has changed dramatically. We still have amazing network experts. We still have great engineers, but we've brought in this whole team of people with, strong marketing backgrounds, people from companies like Salesforce, right? Yeah. Big cloud companies who understand customer success and how to educate people to change their processes. So literally we have world-class experts in how do you run a call center to help our customers transform. How do you run operations? How do you run marketing? And it's really been a top to bottom transformation in Calix in terms of bringing in new people with new expertise. And then we've rolled out, I think, almost unique programs. So you mentioned the challenge of marketing. So we actually created a program called the Market Activation Program, where essentially we're building go-to-market programs. And we talk about it that way because, to your point, it's more than just advertising, which is how some people think about marketing. But it's literally, how do you create a great digital experience? We're creating, ad copy and social content and videos. We just did a series with Jerry D, who's a fairly well-known comedian. And the whole idea is creating content that is entertaining and engaging that they can take and brand. Because one of the biggest things that we're driving with our service providers who are our customers is that they need to build their brand. When the customer thinks about the great technology and experience, they shouldn't be thinking about Google or Amazon or someone else. They should be thinking about BrightRidge or Allo, the local service provider who's putting great Wi-Fi 6 technology in your home, who's giving you a great mobile app. And then we train them on how to actually market it. And we have thousands of videos and assets and we help them, and we work with their partners who sometimes many of them are working with to say, how do you go to market in a way that starts to compete with a Comcast who has hundreds of millions of dollars that they spend on things like marketing? And it's really been an interesting experience to see how the community has come together over the last 4 years and embraced this and said, yeah, we can learn how to articulate our value proposition to subscribers in a way that's engaging and entertaining. And so it's been an amazing thing. We created a whole thing called the Broadband Academy, which is literally just an educational program available for free that any one of our customers, they can sign up the members of their teams where they can go learn how to do digital marketing, how to do mobile marketing, how to do email marketing. So we don't just put the technology together, we're investing millions of dollars in how do we enable our customers to run their business and their processes, world-class experts in call centers and marketing, and then give them actual content that they can take and just brand and run with it. And we literally have customers who will take the web experience that we've built around the technology, explaining what it is, they put their brand on it, they snap it in, and off you go. And it's been a huge force multiplier for so many of our customers. And it's quite frankly been a lot of fun to see these small customers embracing these techniques.
It's very sophisticated in what you're doing. Essentially, you're setting up different personas, and whether it's network operations, marketing, customer support, and GMs and CEOs, the leadership layer, it is absolutely impressive. And dare I say use the overword partnership, but you truly are bringing a partnership to these companies versus slinging technology at them and driving down their throat. In a way, you're also providing management consultancy, which is really fun. So, Matt, I think this is probably a good place, a good place to pause.
Okay.
In our next segment, we're going to build on what we talked about today and dig a little bit more into the general managers and specifically what they can do to ensure the stability for their business of the future. Matt, I want to thank you for coming on, and I'm excited to do our next installment here.
Perfect. All right.
So this is Pat Moorhead with More Insights and Strategy, signing off here for another More Insights and Strategy podcast. Matt Collins